Absolutely superb. So our next presentation is by Steve McMahon from Innotech, Alberta. You're on.
I'm on. All right. That is a hard act to follow. So, quick question. How many people in the crowd know who Innotech, Alberta is? Not bad. Not bad. Okay. I'm going to try and fix that here today. So I'm going to share a lot of content with you. Don't roll your eyes and say, oh my God, I can't read that slide. No need. There's 4 things I want you to take away from my presentation today. Number 1, Innotech has been in the hemp space for 20 years, supported by the Alberta government, and most of our work is done in the town of Vegreville. Number 2, we do have a world-class facility in Vegreville, and we also have a world-class workforce. And you might have heard of a guy named Jan Zlasky. He is not here today. He sends his regrets, but he's kind of a well-known guy all over the world. He works for us. Next, innovation is a team sport, and it can be very complicated, but we're actually managing to get quite good at it here in Alberta. So those are the 3 things I want you to take away. I'm going to throw a lot at you. Those 3 things: 20 years in Alberta, world-class facility, and it's complex, but we're getting this thing. So, there was a 4th. Does anyone understand the difference between research and innovation? Because I love this quote. I love this quote. It's from the guy that, the father of Post-it notes. I still love Post-it notes. This applies to what Innotech is doing in the hemp space. Innotech is and has shifted from research. We're not stopping research, but we're shifting to innovation. And innovation is the transformation of knowledge into money. I think you've seen this slide, developed by the Canadian Hemp Trade Alliance. What it tells us is that there's a reason why we're all in this room, and there's a reason for what we are doing. And as far as Innotech goes, we need this. If this doesn't exist, we move on. I hate to say it. I heard hydrogen a few minutes ago. There are other things. But we're in this. Innotech is in this. We've been in it for 20 years. We continue to be in it. I'll talk about that in a minute. So, the innovation, a little bit of theory here, but the innovation system, I said it was complex, but I'm going to really try and simplify it. If you look at the infographic there, you'll see the airplane. Somebody came up with the idea, said, hey, I think we can fly. Then they said, hey, why don't we build a paper airplane? They proved that we could actually fly a very small scale airplane. Then they decided, well, why don't we try it out in different settings? It crashed, it burned, and eventually they figured out how to have it not crash. Finally, they scaled it up, and they learned from everything in those previous phases to make sure that when we get to this final stage, which is large scale, expensive, capital intensive, and very risky, that we're only going forward with the big bets, because who wants to lose money? So from a hemp perspective, I'll go on to this. Like I said, 20 years. So our team has been involved in, I'll call it the plant scientist. I'm an engineer, I'm not a farmer, so I'll leave it at plant science. I learned a new word since I joined Alberta Innovates. It was called varietals, excuse me. All new for me, but We've done that. We did that at Alberta Innovates, and we did that at specifically at Innotech. So Alberta Innovates is a Crown agency. It's part of the Alberta government, and it is the innovation arm of the government of Alberta. They span right across the entire innovation system. So if you look at that piece at the bottom there, you'll see everything from discover to basic research, applied research, proof of concept, all the way to large-scale production. So that's the span of Alberta Innovates. Innotech is a 100% owned subsidiary of Alberta Innovates. And you say, well, why don't you call yourself Alberta Innovates? Well, we're a little bit different. We are not a Crown agency. We're actually incorporated to do business. So moving along here. It's a busy slide, but what I'm trying to show here and how this innovation system works, I'm using let's follow the money principle. Obviously, we've got the government of Alberta there. Money flows to Innotech, or Alberta Innovates, and then it flows down to Innotech. These are three very invested, entities in the hemp space. We have different roles, but Alberta Innovates does fund Innotech Alberta. The government and Alberta Innovates also funds the innovators. This slide says clients. Ignore clients and put in the word innovators. So grants are being passed. Things are being funded from the government. When these things turn into that late stage, we got to test this. We got to see if it'll actually work in the field, because sometimes things that are small and they work on a bench in a lab don't always work the same way out in the field. So when that happens and people are at that stage, then we get involved. So we work with the innovators. The innovators get funding from the government, and the government helps us kind of, absorb some of the risk. If you are a private organization, you wouldn't want to be in this space. It is too risky. You'd move on to something else. But so that's why we wear kind of a half government, half private organization hat, and I take the hat off all the time and switch it. So quickly here, like I just said, we're half and half, two hats. We are a connector. We're part of the innovation ecosystem. We're here. We're talking. We're networking. We're trying to help the innovators. We're trying to help the innovators and connect them with funders. And when we can do that, then we actually become a partner in the research and development space. So we're not just scientists and engineers and technologists, technicians. We've got folks who are going to try and look at how can we make the deal happen? Who do we have to talk to? We know people. Alberta Innovates is a funding agency. So we can't fund ourselves, but our parent corporation can. So as that catalyst, I don't know if you've ever heard of the expression, the innovation valley of death. The innovation valley of death is when public sector funding starts to go down and they say you're off on your own, and public sector funding is the next place you're trying to go. And if you can't, there's a lot of crashes and burns in that ditch there, and it's a tough place. That's where we fit. That's what we do. We try and help the good ideas, like hemp, cross that bridge. There's a term, research and technology organizations. We are one of the largest in the country. Yay, Alberta, Alberta Advantage. Nobody knows about us. Well, half the room did. We are nonprofit, and we operate on a cost recovery model. We de-risk, and I heard that a lot yesterday. I could 20 times I heard the word de-risk. That's what we do. Our toolbox includes our facilities, our equipment, our really smart people, and now we're getting into the data science space. So this is our really smart people at work. I'll let you read the different things that they do. We're kind of soup to nuts under one roof. And we're exactly that way in the hemp space as well. So we heard Angus spoke about the advantage. Look at this, 1 million square feet of research space. Think about it. Look at the number of facilities we have. 220 staff, half with masters or PhDs, scientists, engineers, technologists, technicians, but the big one here is scale. We host projects that are 10 to 100 times lab scale, so imagine high school lab scale. We also we pilot things 10 to 100% of field scale, capital intensive. So when you're thinking about research development, technology development, and you're thinking large scale, you've kind of made it through all the other layers. That's where we get involved. Largest provincial RTO in the country, right here in Alberta. My friends at Saskatchewan Research Council would argue they have more people, but we have more equipment and facilities. So anyway, we're not just in the hemp space, but I'm here to talk about hemp, but one of our jobs is to stay ahead of the next big thing. So hydrogen was mentioned. There's things like bitumen beyond combustion in the energy space, advanced materials and manufacturing, carbon capture. We do all of these things. Hemp is one of them, and we're very focused right now on bioindustrial. I'm quite excited about it. I will let you look at the collage of photos there. You can read them yourselves, but that's 20 years, and this is there'll be 20 more because we're in this. I meant to thank Manny. I don't see him. He's somewhere around. So there he is. So we're doing. We're talking with the Alberta Hemp Alliance. We're talking about some things that we can do together, and we've got some ideas, I think, Manny, and part of that is building that investable message, and not us as government, but us as an enabler to go and put a solution in front of the funders that they can't refuse. Sounds like The Godfather. So, the hemp ecosystem, pretty impressive. This is something to build upon. I want you to focus a little bit on the middle. And when you're getting into large-scale research development, tech development, you typically are going to have some element of public sector, some element of industry, and the innovators, technology developers. We sit in the middle, not that we're egotistical, that the world revolves around us. It's that dual mandate where we help it happen, and when it does happen, we actually can help do the work. We've got the facilities and the people. So, as I say, pretty impressive list there, I think. Challenges, these have been brought up. If we look at the value chain across the bottom, production, processing, products, supply chain, if you prefer to call it that. First and foremost, we are technology people. We develop, validate, demonstrate, test, specify, and I can go on, but that's our space, is technology. But we know that we have to also recognize that there's a techno-economic space, that just because you can do something doesn't mean there's an economic justification for doing it. So we need to look at the economics, and we help a number of organizations prove out the economics. Can we do it cheaper? Can we use a different material? Can we this? Because money's money. And we spoke about ESG yesterday. So again, in this world, we cannot be doing something that is swimming in the wrong direction with the rest of the world in ESG. So what have we done? I'm winding up here, I promise. So in the green is what we have done. And again, most of it has happened out at Vegreville. Thank you, Mayor Tim. You can always get a clap out of Mayor Tim, and I appreciate it. So we've done varietal testing. We actually came up with we figured out that there is a varietal that'll grow in Alberta and grow well in Alberta, and that's Silesia. We work with seed distributors. We've been in the D-Court space for quite a while, thanks to the Alberta government for that plant. We're looking at application of feedstock, high-value fractions, and the next thing for us is retting and the thermal chemical conversion. So we've just invested in a pressurized reaction tower, and coming next, high-value fraction program, computer visioning. Again, it's not drones. This computer visioning is actually real, and it does work. So if we want the $1 billion prize, Innotech is happy to be part of it. We are open for business. We will partner with you. We'll look at where the funding is going to come from. We're going to help build the investable message, and then we'll help you do the work, the hard work. That's what we do. So my boss, who is the CEO of Alberta Innovates, she would shoot me if I didn't invite you all to a conference in Calgary called Inventures. It is an innovation conference. You should look it up. It's got its own website. It's pretty impressive. But there is a stream there in the innovation and agriculture technology space. And if you want to know more about Alberta's best kept secret, and you've got some ideas, you want to talk, I've got some names here that are certainly more intelligent in this space than I am, but I'm more than excited to get involved in trying to move this forward. And so with that, I will close, and thank you, Manny, again for inviting me, and open for questions.
Not only the last 20 years has Innotech de-risked the hemp industry for producers, for processors, and for entrepreneurs, but I just want to thank you and your staff for encouraging entrepreneurs and letting your staff go to events and talk openly with other Albertans that are trying to push this industry along. They've been the biggest cheerleaders for this industry, and I just want to thank you for letting your staff do that.
Well, you're very welcome. I will pass on those thanks to the people that do the real work.
This feeds into that point, not only
Well, great question. When I took the helm over at Innotech about 2.5 years ago, we didn't have a business relations group. We didn't have a stakeholders group. We didn't have a business development group who's sitting here with us today. We didn't have a growth strategist. We were very much an operator. So just kind of keep on keeping on, and if you kind of broke even, the government would be happy, and everything was good. So we've put a corporate structure in place with one of our major goals, and it's goal number one is market awareness. Absolutely priority. How can you have something like this, an organization like this, in a competitive world and nobody know about it? And as Albertans, that's not really us. We are first in this space. And that said, if you've ever met any of our scientists and engineers and technologists and technicians, they're typically introverts. They're not one to stand up here and talk about the intelligence they actually have and the contributions that they make. So, that's why I had to go out and actually put that in place, because I was never going to change them, and I didn't want to. But so I'm here. We're a subsidiary of a crown agency, but I'm here to say that we're actually here to enable growth, enable business. We are pseudo-government, but I think if you spend any time with our folks, you'll realize that we're much more business and a layer away from government. And don't get me wrong, because we can't do this without the government support that we have. But there's a reason why we incorporated differently, and there's a reason why we named ourselves something that was non-government. I'll go here first, there, and there.
I understand that you can take people who have existing businesses right down to somebody who has nothing. I just want to know, what is the general makeup of your clients? Kind of break that down.
So I will give you remember I showed that overall umbrella, and I said Alberta Innovates, covered the full spectrum. So at the earlier stages, when you have nothing but you got an idea, one of the things you need the most is money. You need some form of technology validation, and you need a business case validation. So Alberta Innovates, our Crown Corporation, they focus on that. They also focus on working with the universities and the post-secondaries. But when that idea starts to grow and it's, say, catching on, and it reaches a certain stage where, that's me telling myself to stop talking. When it reaches a certain stage that suddenly your pitch is more to the bankers and the investors than it is asking, frankly, for some help from government, that's where we are. So, and I recommend that you go to Alberta Innovates for that type of help, because phenomenal organization. And so as a startup entrepreneur, new idea, but we tend, because we're large scale and very risky, we tend to be more expensive, more capital intensive. So I'm not suggesting don't call us. Happy to take your call.
I would very much echo Mayor McPhee's comments. Innotech and Alberta Innovates are the reason why we're here today. When we invested $20 million, this is the reason why. Continued on, you mentioned Silesia is a variety that's been developed through Yan for the past several years. This year, actually, we finally have an opportunity to grow 10, 20 acres
Yeah, well, our goal is for success in business. So obviously, we're in an expensive kind of business ourselves, but I can see us having conversations to say, okay, this is impeding the growth, because that's what we're here for. We're partly Alberta government, and our job, you all, if you're from Alberta, you own us. Like and our job is to provide growth and sustainment of our core industries. So if we're in the way with some of our say, business arrangements, then yes, we need to have a conversation.